This video is brought to you by my two books, Practical Music Theory for the Rock Guitarist and The Blues Guitar Bible. Want to learn about modes, harmony, scales, chord substitution and keys? Or maybe you're interested in supercharging your blues guitar rhythm and lead chops. Whatever you're interested in, I guarantee you will be hitting the fast lane to progress with either of these works. Both feature video demonstrations and tutorials, loads of tabs and jam tracks to play along with, and I promise you, everything is explained in crystal clear plain English. Check out the links in the description for more details. Hello chaps, welcome once again to John Robson Guitar Tuition. As always, I do hope you're well. A little jam in 3 parts there using 3 different guitars. And the reason I decided to sort of, kind of chop it up like that or divide it up like that was to illustrate 3 different approaches that you can use. And there are more, as we're going to discover, but the main 3 approaches that you can use when playing over a particular type of backing track or in a particular type of song. A song that is written with a chord sequence that has certain attributes. And if you've been paying attention to these Monday soloing videos, you will no doubt recognise that jam track from one that I did a little while ago. I think it was in one of the Wednesday videos actually, rather than the Monday videos, but in the name of recycling, I thought I'd give that jam track a little bit of a second airing. As I say, if you have been, switched on to what I've been doing in these videos, you'll remember, or you possibly will remember, that jam track is in the Mixolydian mode. I'll link to the full video where I'm explaining what's going on with that. I know that the term modes often makes people run for the hills and kind of, all of the theory-phobic people kind of go la 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 la. But honestly, it's not as taxing as you possibly may think. So there were 3 different approaches, essentially using 2 different pentatonic scales, and then the approach where you can mix them together. But there's more that you can do with that, because when you add 2 things together, sometimes you can extract from that melting pot things that you didn't really realise were there in the first place. Here's some information on that.
Here is the explanation.
Okay, so as I may have already mentioned, because I haven't shot that part of the video yet, the jam track that we were, or that I was playing over earlier, was in the Mixolydian mode. Let's just have a quick look at the chord sequence. There it is. This is the jam track from a few weeks ago when I did a video specifically about the Mixolydian mode. It feels like it's in the key of E, because everything resolves to the E chord. You've got the E going to the D, A, back to E, continue with the E, C sharp minor, D, to A, and resolve back onto the E again. E feels very much like the tonal centre of that piece of music. So why isn't it in the key of E then? Well, because it's using chords that can all only occur together in the key of A. I'll link to the original video I did on this in the description, so you can check out that in a little bit more detail. But all of those chords come from the key of A. The key of A contains the chords of A, B minor, C sharp minor, D, E, F sharp minor, and the naughty little half diminished chord on the G sharp, and then you're back to A again. Okay, so as I say, all of the chords in this chord sequence here can only occur in the key of A major, but we're biasing the chord sequence towards the 5 chord, based on the 5th note of the scale, the E note, in other words, the E chord. And when you bias a chord sequence to the 5 chord in a key, you are in the Mixolydian mode. So how do we play over this then? Well, I started off the solo by using the E major pentatonic, E, F sharp, G sharp, B, and C sharp. And if you want to know what that sounds like, take a listen to the first couple of cycles of the chord sequence in that solo. I used the various positions of the E major pentatonic across the entire fretboard, just to give it that major pentatonic sound. Then after that, I sort of migrated into the minor pentatonic, because the Mixolydian mode is associated with the 5th chord in a key, in this case the 5 chord being an E. That can be, if you sort of extend that chord a little bit, it would become an E7th, simply by adding the D note, which is present obviously in the D chord, but there's a D note in the key that we're using the chords from. So you add that D note into an E chord, you get an E7th. And 7th chords are typically the fodder used in blues. So if I was to just play an E7 chord now, it will sound a little bit bluesy if I do it right. And you can imagine using the minor pentatonic over the top of that. So we've got 2 pentatonics there, the E major pentatonic and the E minor pentatonic. You could say that the major pentatonic gives us quite a sort of pop, country-ish kind of sound, and the minor pentatonic will give us more of a bluesy kind of sound. What happens if we combine them together though? Well, that looks like this. You get something called the hybrid scale. And this is where the fun really begins. You can see I've colour-coded the notes in that diagram there, which ones are from the minor pentatonic, which ones are from the major pentatonic, and which ones are shared between the two. You'll see that's just basically the E note and the B note. But if we just map those notes out there, the E hybrid scale, you can see a combination of the notes in the major and the minor pentatonics: E, F sharp, G, G sharp, A, B, C sharp, and D. And the fun begins when we start teasing some of the notes out of that pair of pentatonics overlaid on top of each other, the hybrid scale. As you might suspect, because we're in the Mixolydian mode, we get all of the notes of the Mixolydian mode lurking within that combined scale, that hybrid scale. And if I was to use just the Mixolydian mode over the top of that chord sequence, it would sound like this. But there's more. We can, if we basically do this and essentially just get rid of the G sharp note that would make it Mixolydian and replace it with the G note, which makes it Dorian, we get another kind of flavour of soloing scale that we can use, which would sound like this. So that is the sound of the Dorian mode being played over the Mixolydian mode chord sequence. Yes, I know, it's getting a little bit kind of twisty now, isn't it? A bit like the plot lines of a show like Lost. If anyone else remember that one? Confused the bejesus out of me. Anyway, that is sort of the set of scales: the major pentatonic, the minor pentatonic, the hybrid scale, the Mixolydian mode and the Dorian mode that you get in many, many classic rock solos, because a lot of classic rock is based upon the Mixolydian mode for either the riff or the chord sequence that's going on underneath. You hear this in the work of AC/DC. You hear it in the solos of Chuck Berry, you know, all the way through to things like Lynyrd, Skynyrd, you know, all of this kind of classic bluesy rock sort of stuff, which has that Mixolydian slant to it, has this kind of multiplicity of scales going on in there. Many of the players, of course, will be playing this without necessarily thinking in terms of scales. But just because you're not thinking that you're playing a Mixolydian mode doesn't mean that you're not playing a Mixolydian mode, you know. It's very much the way I learned was like learning the moves on the fretboard, and then much later on discovering what the textbook terms for those things were. And the advantage of knowing the sort of descriptive terms of what you're doing is that you know, you can communicate a little bit more freely with other musicians, because, you know, you're talking, you know, what the linguistic terms are to describe what you're doing. And, you know, it does kind of start giving you a thread to pull at that you can, you know, if you know a lick on the fretboard and it sounds good, well, you know a lick on the fretboard and it sounds good. But if you understand it and know how it relates to what's going on in the bigger picture, that's a thread you can pull at and learn more stuff. And that's always got to be a valuable thing to do. So there you go. That's just a little bit of information on what you can do when you're playing in a typical blues rock Mixolydian kind of context. Now you know what to do. Go away and have some fun with it. And as always, you'll find a full tab for that solo at the top of the video in both Guitar Pro and PDF formats. That explanation you've just seen there, the clip of me playing the solo and the jam track that I was playing over once again if you didn't get it the first time around. This kind of multi-scale approach is, as I've just mentioned there, you know, absolutely endemic to all bluesy rock and classic rock bands. Everyone, as I said, you know, going all the way back to Chuck Berry, you know, and the 50s rock and rollers. And then you hear it in, of course, you'll hear it in the work of the Beatles. You know, it's difficult to think of any well-used phenomenon in rock music that isn't well represented in the Beatles catalogue. But, you know, the Stones as well, and going into the 70s, Bad Company, Free. I mean, the solo in All Right Now is a textbook example of mixing minor and major pentatonics together. You know, and all of the usual suspects that I've already named: AC/DC, Aerosmith, Led Zeppelin, of course. You're going to hear this approach writ large across the whole pantheon of classic rock bands. So it's worthwhile getting a little bit of an understanding of it, which is why I decided to do this video today. Hopefully it all made some kind of sense, and you know, if you want more information on any of this sort of stuff and more, then I can recommend a really rather enlightening book, Practical Music Theory for the Rock Guitarist. There's a link in the description. And with that, I'll bid you all a good day. Don't forget the live stream every Friday, 5 p.m. UK time, where we drink beer and just basically have a chat because it's Friday and it's time for a beer. It's a great way to kick off the weekend, and I'd love to see you there if you can make it. If you've enjoyed the video today, then please hit the subscribe button and notification bell if you haven't already done so, and why not drop me a like as well while you're at it. But that's all I've got for you. So until next time, look after yourselves, folks. Stay well, stay safe, and above all, stay sane. Bye for now.